Chapter 6, The Long Way Home. Morning comes like a clean knife. The sky is washed bone, then pale blue, then the hard white of a day that plans to forget you. We break camp beside the rail, and the metal sings in the small wind, a thin thread of sound that sits in the teeth more than the ear. Asa checks her boots, one borrowed since the culvert stole the other, ties her hair back with a strip of cloth, and pretends she is not glancing at Gren every few heartbeats. Gren checks nothing. He stands with the packs, both slung across his shoulders, and hums that slow, wordless tune that always makes the air feel like water. We start walking. The line keeps us honest. It points without judging. Salt shows in patches between the weeds, the color of bone after rain. Every few yards I see the ghost of an old mile marker, a stub of iron or a rectangle of concrete with numbers erased by weather and time. A vulture circles high, a question mark without a sentence to finish. Asa breaks the quiet first. She always does when the morning seems like it might get ideas about being kind. If a person could only keep one tool, she says, between the maul and the revolver, which would you keep? The maul, I say. It never lies. It only tells you what you can lift. Wrong, she says. The right answer is the knife. You asked me to choose between two, I remind her. She smirks without showing teeth. Then I guess you chose wrong between the two. Gren clears his throat. Knife is for food, he says. Maul is for talking. Gun is for the part where talking stops. We look at him. He looks at his boots. What about you, Asa? I ask. What would you keep if you could only keep one? She drags the edge of her blade along a scrap of leather and watches the faint curl that rises. The knife, she says. You can eat with it, and you can argue with it, and you can carve your name on a door that will not remember you. That's more than most things give you. We walk. The ground opens into a low plain where scrub grows in small circles like ideas that never learn to travel in a straight line. Far to the south, a line of broken towers leans together. The wind carries the smell of blackroot behind us, that sweet rot that makes the back of the tongue complain. Ahead, there is the clean smell of salt and iron and old rain. Tell a story, Asa says suddenly. Her voice is flat in that old way that is not anger, just a habit of not letting feeling show up without a knife to keep it in line. You first, I say. I did. The knife is my story. That's a list of uses, I say. Story. She walks in silence for 10 steps, 20, and then speaks so calmly it takes a moment for the words to find the right places in my head. First time I killed a rest. I was 11. There was one in the tobacco ruins near the creek, the place where Father keeps saying the ghosts grow weeds. It had both hands and the belly of a deer. It had been there so long the flies had made their own scaffolding. I came up behind it. I had your old knife. I thought I would be quiet, but I wasn't, so it turned. It smiled like a curtain rod with lips. She stops walking. Gren stops too. I stop last because I'm still learning how to be a brother before I'm a fighter. It reached for me. I went under the arms and cut across what used to be ribs. The knife stuck. The thing kept smiling. Surprised at how heavy it was. I thought sin would be lighter, she says. I pulled the knife out and went up under the chin and into the mouth and into the part where the brain hides its soft. I thought there would be more music. There wasn't. She starts walking again. Gren doesn't look at her. He looks at the horizon like he's afraid it might come closer if anyone treats it with too much respect. I waited for someone to tell me good work, she says. But you were out with Father, and no one else would believe me. So I told myself, we are quiet a while. Then I say, good work. Late, she says, but better than never. Gren clears his throat. I used to sing to goats. We both look over. Goats, he says again, as if we missed the important part. Back when I was at the East Fence, before the watch was my work proper, I had a dozen. Folks laughed at me for naming them, but they came when I called if I sang it right. They liked the old songs. Even the dumb ones could tell glory from noise. I miss them when the moon is fat. They would run in little circles and stare at nothing with great patience. It was good company. What were their names? Asa asks. He thinks. Bread, Juniper. Wife, a few he does not say out loud. Spoon. She was born wrong in the legs. I made splints out of a crate, and she learned to move like a broom with laughter. That's how the boy said it. He chuckles without volume. She liked to eat the paper labels off jars. I told her that made her a reader. She died when the rest came in winter. She stood in front of the barn door and wouldn't move. She thought she was born to keep doors and be brave about it. I had a little one called. I glance at Asa. Her eyes are softer than she wants them to be. You hear that, Spoon? I say to the empty air. They remember you. Gren smiles in that shy way that makes you think of a hill at sunset. Thank you, he says. Now you, Asa says to me, tell one that isn't about the maul or the gun or how you can lift more than a man your size should. Tell one about the part of you that will be broken when the weapons are gone. When I was little, I say, Father used to pray over bullets. Not loudly, not in front of anyone. He would angle the candle so the light crossed the grooves, and he would bring the cartridge up close and whisper, 2 words for each. Not all the same words. He said it wasn't magic. He said it was good manners, like knocking before you open a door you already own. Asa snorts. Father says every door is alone. He's right, I say. Even the ones you build. He has a way of keeping us honest when honesty is the last thing we can afford. What were the words? Gren asks. Different every time, I say. Sometimes he said a person's name. Sometimes he said a place. He would say creek bed, patience, the year of our hunger, water, the name of a goat we didn't know he liked, the name of a man we hated and didn't want to admit we'd miss. Sometimes he said, sorry, in a voice like ash. The moon is listening, and if you talk soft, it might speak soft back when it wakes. It's already waking, Asa says. The rails hum when the wind goes the wrong way. Blackroot sighed like a sleeping animal that smelled a pan on a stove. Gren nods. Rock sang to me last night, he says. Down under the culvert where it was tight. I don't know the words of it, but it felt like counting we keep walking. Around noon the sky hazes. A thin veil moves in, not rain, just a film that turns distance into a guess. We leave the rails for an hour to circle a field of glass where lightning once taught Sam to remember. The fused shapes are beautiful, like a forest that forgot to be wood. Asa touches one with the back of her fingers and shakes her hand as if a memory burned her. We reach a hill of red dirt with the remains of a gas station bent into it. The roof is peeled back, the pumps are eaten to bones, a sign lies face down in the weeds. We check the shadow before we step into it, taste tired, not hungry. We take our food in the cool, jerky. A little corn mashed with something that isn't corn. A handful of candied pepper seeds, my father swears, make men wiser. Gren eats slow, careful of his bandaged arm. Asa eats like a soldier, quick and quiet. On a shelf behind the counter, a radio sits under a film of dust. It's the kind to be teeth. The cord is chewed in 2. Beside it, a hand crank is attached to a little dynamo. Gren notices it first. He's the kind of person who always notices the one tool other people have decided is done. May I? He asks. If it hurts us, I'll hit it, Asa says. He says, and lifts the radio like it might bruise if he brushes off the dust with the flat of his palm, sets it on the counter and checks the back. Cranks the dynamo with a gentle rhythm. The little red light wakes, flickers, steadies, nothing at first. Just a sigh. The snow falling when there is no snow, a field of white that has learned to make a sound. Gren turns the dial by tiny degrees, listening as if the world is shy and he has always known how to help it speak. There is a click in the air, a kind of throat clearing. Then a sound, soft, almost kind. It's a long tone, like the rail wind, but lower, and the pitch slides in a way a machine doesn't, unless it's built to be so. Asa frowns. That's not weather. No, I say. Gren's fingers still. He doesn't breathe. He doesn't remember how. The tones settle into a pattern that is almost words. I think I hear a shape that could be the number 7. Asa thinks she hears the number 3. We don't say it out loud for a while because something we're not ready to acknowledge. Then behind the tones a voice, if voice is the right word. It doesn't have consonants, it has edges. The sound is thin and far, but it sits in the heart like a heavy thing. It says syllables that slide, then reverse, then slide again. If you listen the wrong way, it sounds like wind. If you listen the right way, it sounds like a child practicing a song it learned in a country you can't find on any map. It leans toward a name. It leans toward mine. Silas, Asa whispers. You hear that? It sounds like it wants to be my name, I say. It's not it. I think it's saying what my name will be when I die. She goes very still. It's the only time I enjoy her stillness, because it lets me see the person who hides inside the person who is always in motion. Gren turns the volume down a measure, not because he's afraid, but because he's being polite. A burst of crackling rushes in like an insect swarm, then clears. The 2 tones return. A third joins them, lower, steady, a heartbeat you wouldn't notice if you'd never lain with your ear on another person's chest while they told you something that hurt. The beats come in pairs, then 3s, then in a pattern almost like the rhythm of distant trucks moving over seams in the road. A half-second later, the rail behind the station gives a faint, real shiver underfoot, the tiniest of echoes. That's not possible, Asa says. Possibility is for people with more food, I answer. The tones stop as if a hand closed on the sound. The silence after isn't relief. It's a room that wants to be filled. Something whispers in that emptiness. It might be our own breath learning to be afraid. It might be the ocean that used to exist in the middle of the continent. It might be the moon dragging its nails across the sky. Then the radio speaks clearly, and I would have preferred the other way. A voice that is almost a voice says 3 words that are not words. The mouth that says them is wider than a horizon and does not own a tongue, yet somehow I understand. It says, nearly in my tongue, come back soon. Gren reaches out and clicks the knob off. He does it gently. He keeps his hand there a moment, fingers resting on the plastic, like he's steadying a child that had a nightmare. Asa breathes. I breathe. The world remembers to make the small noises again. A wasp ticks against a broken pane. The far wind pulls at a strip of sign that never learned to stop advertising when the world did. It said that, Asa says. She isn't asking. It did, I say. She swallows. I don't know whether we should be honored or insulted. Gren looks at the radio with love and regret, the way you look at a tool that will always be better than you are. I think it was saying what it always says, he murmurs. We heard a piece. It was kind about it. Asa repeats. That's the word you want. If I call it cruel first, I won't hear it right next time, he says. We leave the radio on the counter. We don't take it. Not because we couldn't carry it, because carrying it would be a kind of consent, and we're not ready for that. We walk out into the light. It's still the same light. That bothers me more than the sound. We follow the rails again. Afternoon stretches long and thin. Gren begins to tell a story without being asked. It's a bad joke, and he tells it badly, which is why it works. There was a goat, he says, and a hat. Asa already starts to smile. She's trying to hold it back, which makes it worse. The goat kept eating the hat, he says. Every day the man stitched new leather, and every day the goat found a way to get its teeth in. The man finally gave up and said, "You win," and he put the hat on the goat. The goat wore it until the day it died and afterward. That's why the hat is made from leather other than goat. It's because goats are better at being free than people are at pretending to be fair. Silence. Then Asa snorts. She tries to cover it with a cough, but the cough is a laugh with manners. I shake my head and do not let myself smile because I'm busy being the older brother who must hold a shape of seriousness in case someone needs to lean on it. Then I smile anyway because the air needs it. Tell another one, Asa says. No, I say, make him work for it. Gren obliges, slow and cheerful. Farmer, goat, another hat. The same joke in a different coat. It's worse the second time, and somehow the second time is better, because repetition is its own sort of kindness. Asa laughs for real this time, and then looks down and kicks at a stone like she's angry at the fact that she's happy to be alive in a world like this even for a heartbeat. We talk about nothing for a while. The shape of clouds that aren't heavy enough to do anything useful. The taste of river water when it's more mud than water. The way the rest smell different when they've found fresh blood, a sour that sits behind the sour. The way you can tell a prime from a pretender before you see it because the skin on your arms will rise one hair at a time as if a teacher is calling roll on you. We stop at a dry creek that still knows how to look like it might be water if it had help. Gren kneels, gathers a handful of the whitest sand and lets it pour through his fingers. He studies the way it falls, the little steps, the way it sticks to itself in shapes that don't make sense until they do. What are you looking for? I ask. He shrugs.
See how your weight behaves,
he says. It's honest. Asa squats and draws a map in the damp with the point of her knife. The town, the ridge, Blackroot, the culvert, the rails, the slag cut, the way we'll have to skirt the abandoned quarry if we don't want to waste a day. She holds the whole picture in her head and doesn't act like it's heavy. We camp before sunset in a shallow bowl where the wind goes over instead of through. We make a small fire that eats what we give it and asks for nothing else. Asa cleans her blade. I oil the revolver and check the maul's head for hairline fractures. Gren sits with his back to a flat rock and hums that mountain lullaby, his eyes on the edge of the world. He doesn't close them. He will not for any of us, not yet. Tell me about the night with Mother, Asa says quietly. The question comes like a slow river. She doesn't look at me when she asks it. She looks at the flame. No, I say. Please. I look at Gren. He keeps his eyes on the dark like a man who knows exactly what belongs to him. I take a breath. Then another. This is not a story for campfires. It's a story for locked doors. I give her a piece anyway. It was July, I say. Heat made a room out of the world. She was sitting up in bed, and the bed had learned the shape of her in a way that wasn't love. She was quiet. I mean, quiet, like a law. Father sat by the window and watched the dark, because he could keep it from touching her if he looked hard enough. She looked at me and then past me. She didn't want to die, and she didn't want to live. She wanted to be finished with a kind of hunger that wasn't her own. The night made a sound like an animal trying to learn a word. I stop. The fire pops softly. Gren hums one note and then lets it go. She said my name without a voice, I say. I don't know how else to say it. She said please to me without moving her mouth. I knew the shape of the request because it matched the shape in my chest exactly. I don't remember picking up the gun. I don't remember the barrel. I remember the weight of the trigger at the point where the world divides into before and after. That's where I live most days. In that hinge, Asa's jaw locks and unlocks. Her eyes are wet, then dry, then wet again. Gren doesn't move. She says, I hate you, I hate him, I love her, I love you. I don't know what to do with any of that. You carry it, I say. Then you set it down for a minute, then you pick it up again. That's the shape of days. She wipes her face with the back of her wrist and accidentally smears ash across her cheek. She leaves it. It suits her. Gren says nothing for a long while. Then he says, "Very soft, I should have died." "No," I say, and I'm surprised at the heat in my voice. That wasn't the price the world asked. We don't get to choose a different receipt. Asa gives me a sharp look. Then she nods. She stands, circles the fire to Gren, kneels with her knife in her lap, and takes his large hand in both of hers. She turns it palm up the way she did before. She traces the lines with a finger as if reading. She lets it go and sits back on her heels. "Thank you for saving us," she says. "I'm not ready to forgive you. You don't get to ask. You get to be here. We eat the last of the jerky and the pepper seeds. We drink slow. The small fire throws shadows that look like trees learning to walk. The rails, half a mile off, sing a thin line that bends and straightens and bends again. I listen for words in it. I don't find them. Night deepens. The sky ripens into a field of bruises and then a deeper blue that remembers the ocean. The moon lifts, swollen with the idea of itself. My father's voice walks through my chest like a barefoot man on warm boards. He says, "Speak softly to it." He says, "It is alive and hateful, yes, but it learned hate from us." He says, "Do not give it any more." I look up and say, "Not yet." The word leaves my mouth and feels smaller than the thing meant. Asa lies down with her knife under her cheek. Her eyes are open, then closed, then open again, then closed for longer. She sleeps like a fox who knows the trap came from a man who loved it once. I don't ask what she dreams. Some things don't belong to brothers. Gren stays where he is. He watches the horizon. He hums sometimes, barely. He chews a piece of bark like a man trying to remember a taste. He touches his bandage, checks the knot, leaves it alone, and I've never seen a person choose wakefulness like that. It's not pride, it's not fear. It's a decision that's already been paid for. He lifts his hand once and shows me his palm. It's a quiet way of saying I'm here. I sleep in shifts. When I wake, Gren is exactly where I left him. When I wake again, he's exactly where I left him. The stars have moved like a herd of patient animals. The rails have cooled and their song is gone. The breath of the world tastes cleaner. The radio is only a shape in memory, and the voice that said come back soon has not found a way to follow us into this bowl of dirt and ash. When the morning comes, it is the color of a tin cup. We shake the stiffness out of our legs and shoulders. We eat what is left. We shoulder our packs. The town waits, and the hat, and the people who will call us fools and then ask for leadership, and my father with his quiet theories, and a future that is now a place with rails you can touch. Asa walks at the front. I take the middle. Gren follows, not because he is less, but because he is what covers our backs. He hums that same tune, slower now, with little pauses in it where a goat might have bleated once, waiting for his hand and the promise of a fence that kept nothing important out and nothing worth keeping in. We move along the rail until the old road joins it and then peels away. Dust rises behind us and settles on our shoulders like a blessing given by someone who never believed in us but loved us anyway. We go on. We talk about the dumbest things we can think of, on purpose. How bread used to smell when the ovens were new, whether the word skillet is better to say than the word pan. How many steps it takes to bring a person back into a room when you walk in and pretend you were never gone, whether goats dream of grass that used to grow in cities, whether the few who walk daylight should have another name besides prime, because the word makes them sound like they earned it, and they didn't. The land begins to lift, and the shape of home rises in the far heat. We can almost see the stagger of fences, the line of porches, the stubborn silhouettes of people who have learned to live like weather. I think of Alan Black teaching the kids to keep their fingers entire. I think of Marta counting beans with a scowl that makes men forget they ever liked salt. I think of the elder, his calm hands, and the way he will step aside or not. I think of the hat sitting on its table like a god who knows it is only leather. We stop on a small rise. The wind runs by, happy to be free. Asa looks back at Gren. He looks back at her. She does not smile. She nods. It is better than a smile. It promises duration. You should sleep, I tell him. Not yet, he says. You'll have to sometime, I say. He nods. When the house is bigger, he says. We keep walking. The town is still ahead. The rails turn slightly north, then back east, and the hum is gone. I wonder if it ever was, or if it was my blood. At the last bend before the home valley, we pass a little hill with a single iron cross planted in it, no name. Just the stubborn belief that metal hammered into dirt can make loss obey. Asa touches the cross with 2 fingers. Gren tips his head. I don't touch it because I have too many names to put there, and I'm not ready to choose which one gets to be first. We descend toward the first fence. I can see Father's chair in my head, and the way he sits in it when he has something to say that will cost a man the rest of his afternoon. I can see Alan's hands working a whetstone, nervous and precise, and the way he will not meet my eyes at first, because he thinks being relieved is a sin. I can see the square, and the table, and the hat. I can hear my own voice already, and it is not the one I just used in the gas station when I asked the moon to wait. It is the one that will have to convince people to walk the length of the world on purpose. I feel Asa's elbow brush mine. Not an accident, not a plea. A count. 1, 2, 3. We are still here. Gren hums. He walks like a mountain that learned to move to keep a promise. He still doesn't sleep. He won't. Not yet. Maybe not for a long time. We enter the valley, and the town comes into full shape, and the people turn their faces to us, and the day begins in a way that feels like the start of the part of the story where people begin to remember what the word we used to use for courage meant when it wasn't being sold out of a jar. Behind us, somewhere far down the line, the rails give a faint tremor that could be wind. I don't turn. I don't need to. I already know the sound it makes when the world decides to wake up. It's the sound of a radio that should not be alive, finding a frequency that has been waiting for it since 2025. It's the sound of a god clearing its throat. Come back soon, it told us. We will, I say under my breath, but on our terms. We walk into town. Chapter 7, The Hatch.